Good evening and welcome, everybody. Today is the fourth lecture in our series, What After BAMS? This series is aimed at providing a forum for BAMS students to discover the various ways in which they can use their Ayurvedic degree. Oftentimes, we come across students who are very narrowly doing a BAMS and an MD, and when we talk to them, they feel like their choices are very limited. Through our bouquet of speakers, we want to tell you you have many, many options, and you can be creative in many different ways while still using the knowledge that you have gained as clinicians, and of a rich traditional medical knowledge system. Our speaker today is Dr. Rammanohar. So Dr. Manohar will talk about his education and career trajectory and advice for you. So I will instead introduce him through a different angle, the angle through which I became familiar with him. And that was this paper that I had read, which came out in 2011, which tried to look at comparing methotrexate uh, for rheumatoid arthritis to Ayurvedic treatment. And what I really loved about this paper was the detail to which the Ayurvedic treatment was held. It was truly try to introduce the personalized concept of Ayurveda and using a clinical framework to figure out whether the Ayurvedic way of treatment, which is personalized at so many levels, right? The type of massage you get, the oil you have, what you intake, what you eat, etc. And packaging that and putting it together for a trial. And I would say that that was a landmark publication. The result, I think, because of the small sample size, to me, that was not such a big matter. For me, it was the beautiful way in which the experiment was conducted. So with that, I will stop. Dr. Rammanohar has also gone on to do many other things, and he's now part of a bigger trial, isn't it, sir, of that same rheumatoid study. And I will hand it over to him to tell us the path of a Vaidya scientist. Over to you, sir.
Sorry, am I audible now? Yes. So thank you, Megha, for that nice and warm introduction. I see, as usual, everybody is hiding behind their cameras. I would earnestly request all of you to switch on your cameras. It is not good to, hide yourself. It makes me feel very strange. So can we take a moment and switch on cameras, unless it's really not possible? I'd like to see whom I'm talking to. If you there's absolutely no response. Strange. Oh, okay.
We have one, Dhanashri. Come on, Lavni,
Shobha.
Nanya, Shobha as well. Yes. Hi.
So you can let me know when I should stop. We have how much time actually?
Sir, we've planned for about 20-25 minutes of a talk.
And then interaction. Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
yes. So thanks to all of you who have switched on your camera, it makes me feel more engaged. This is something I really hate about online meetings, not able to see people's faces. That really makes the whole thing very less effective and very artificial. So let me introduce myself. Of course, thanks to Megha, you already have an introduction. I'd like to begin by saying, that Ayurveda came into my life all of a sudden like a thunderbolt. When I had just completed my 10th grade, SSLC as we used to call it at that time, I was very keen to go for medicine. So we have to do what is called as a pre-degree course at that time, and we used to call this as biology as the second group, which is biology, and so I got myself admission also to the second group, and I was all set in the journey of becoming a medical doctor when my father suddenly announced this shocking news to me that he is going to send me to study Ayurveda. So, I was completely, disappointed. I became very angry. I tried to, oppose him and offered a lot of resistance. So, I want to give a little bit more background why he asked me to do this. Is at that time in Coimbatore, Krishna Kumarji, he was a great visionary, the son of the founder of Ayurveda Pharmacy Coimbatore, which has contributed a lot. And even that NIH funded study that Megha was talking about was became a reality because of his vision. And I was lucky to be part of that institution. So he had set up a very important educational experiment in the field of Ayurveda. See, everybody comes to study Ayurveda when all other options are lost. So Ayurveda is a fallback option. So Krishna Kumarji was of the opinion that it is because people study Ayurveda, we start the study of Ayurveda with rejection, with sorrow. It takes a lot of time for them to get accustomed to this whole system. And by the time they get tuned to it, the course is over. And then they feel very lost. So he said we have to catch them young. So before they try for modern medicine, we must catch them. So after SSLC. So at that time there was a provision for a pre-Ayurveda course, which is equivalent to the pre-degree 2 years. Today what we call as a +2. So that is why he told my father that my father was a freedom fighter. He was not an Ayurveda doctor. So he had a lot of passion for Indian culture. And so I was told that he was told that, you all speak very big things about our culture and other things, but when it comes to your own children, you send them to study modern medicine. So that, really touched my father very deeply. So he said, this is something new. This is a 7.5 years Gurukula system. And we have to contribute, preserve our culture and develop this system. So I want you to go and study this system. I just couldn't come to terms with it. And then he told me, okay, you do one thing, you just go and visit the college and take a look around. And if you feel you are really interested, you join, otherwise you come back. So that I could agree. So a trip was arranged. Krishna Kumarji arranged a special trip for me to go to the college and see the campus, and this was completely mind-boggling. When I stepped into this campus, I thought I was entering into some fairyland. This was in the middle of a forest in Coimbatore at the foothills of the Anakati mountains. So it was as if I was transported to another world, beautiful birds, peacocks, the rivulets and the streams flowing in the background. Later I realized that it was not so beautiful. There were snakes and elephants and all kinds of wild animals also. But my first encounter was that I felt as if I was sitting in the lap of nature. And it was not Ayurveda that actually attracted me, but that beautiful environment where students were practicing meditation. They were leading a very different way of life, practicing kalari, sitting together under trees. So I found that this was definitely a different kind of experience. It's not like the usual colleges, which I would be attending, all concrete buildings. And so what I thought was, this is worth taking a risk for. I felt that I will have a completely different experience in this environment. So I have to admit that it was nature that called me, not Ayurveda. My calling was Mother Nature herself inviting me into this course. And of course, Ayurveda is from Mother Nature itself. So later I would get introduced to Ayurveda. This is how the whole thing started. Now, when I started the course, the first few months, it was really terrible for me. When I got introduced to Vata, Pitta, Kapha, I thought my life was done. Of coming from a science background, so much interested in medical science, trying to read about medicine, modern. That is what also put me into research later. I have been in that border. I mean, that unites both science and spirituality. Because I was introduced into the spirituality at a time when I was very deeply engaged with science. So I told my father, I think I made a wrong decision. The place is nice, the life is beautiful, it's totally different, but the subject seems to be just, not what I was looking forward to. Everything looks very outdated, unscientific. So he told me, of course, you spend a little bit more time, and then I became frustrated, and again I started fighting with my father, saying that this has been a very wrong decision. I must stop the course. And I was in such a fighting spirit one day when suddenly he said, okay, you can drop the course and come back. That was so unexpected. I was in a fighting mood, so I couldn't accept when he said, you stop the course and come. I felt that I had to continue the fight because I had become so involved that later I regretted that also, because then I told him, I'm not going to stop the course. Because at that point I had reached a situation where my only goal was to fight my father. I had even forgotten that I want to, stop the course and come. So I said, no, I'm going to continue the course. Let me see what I can do. And I said, I'm going to disprove Ayurveda. So this is the beginning of my entry into research. I was 15 years old at that time, and I was kind of beginning, the teenage troubles were beginning, and so I had many romantic ideas. I thought it would be nice. What is after all my life? Let me just give it up by destroying Ayurveda. This kind of course should not happen again. So I will try to disprove Ayurveda, and my goal was to stop the BMS course, if possible, through my work. Now, this is how I started studying Ayurveda, by opposing it, not by accepting it, by questioning it. And I must say that this is what has actually enriched me, because the more I have opposed Ayurveda, the more I have questioned it, the more it has revealed its nature to me. If I was a blind believer, I don't think I would have had so many insights that came to me because of, and this is what I want to tell our younger generation. This is the spirit of a Vaidya scientist, that in Ayurveda we have to bring this spirit of inquiry. And Ayurveda is not going to lose in that process. I thought I could destroy Ayurveda, but I was strengthening my faith in Ayurveda through that process and my conviction in Ayurveda. And I did not realize how over the years I became a crusader for Ayurveda, though I began, to fight it out. Again, the issues came, so I had begun to settle in it. Sanskrit was fascinating for me. So I used to, when I write exams, we had an option of writing in English. Everybody would answer Sanskrit paper in English. I thought that's very stupid. If you are studying Sanskrit, you have to answer in Sanskrit. So I used to take the trouble to answer everything in Sanskrit. So two things in my career which I think really helped me go deeper into Ayurveda and put me where I am now, in a very interesting space where I'm trying to bring modern science, modern medicine and Ayurveda together. Two things. One is this spirit of inquiry. It came through the force of circumstances. The way I came into Ayurveda, the way I encountered it, that was kindled in me by circumstances. The second thing is this fascinating interest for Sanskrit, because that helped me to read the texts in original. I realized later that if you study Ayurveda through translations, you miss the points. The translations that are available are so bad. They don't give you insight. So, equipped with these two weapons, this kind of inquiry where I wanted to disprove Ayurveda and this interest in Sanskrit, I began to study Ayurveda more deeply. But when we came into the BAMS program after the pre-Ayurveda, I got introduced to anatomy and physiology, and then again, this despondency overcame me. Because when I started reading physiology and Ayurvedic anatomy, there is no brain, heart is just a flower. So, I was even saying this is brainless Ayurveda. Where is the brain? Where is all the anatomical details? Where is the physiology? So that was again a time when I became very despondent. I started critically looking into Ayurvedic texts, trying to find out, what is there anything at all in Ayurveda that is of, use for this current. So we had not yet come into the clinical training also. So this made it all the more frustrating. And I'm sure many Ayurveda students today also go through these struggles, because they are, in my case, I was wanting to do medicine. I never got a chance to even try for it. So for a long time, I had that regret in my mind that had I tried, maybe I could have got into medicine. It took a long time for me to come out of that. Today, a lot of people come to Ayurveda because they don't get admission to medicine. So in the first few years, there is also, what I call as an Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Ayurveda Vishada Yoga. That is when Arjuna has that state of despondency. Many Ayurveda students also go through this phase in the first few years before they get introduced. And by the time they tune in, the course is also over. So then what happened was, I have to really say that we had amazing teachers in Coimbatore. So Krishna Kumarji handpicked them, and some of those great teachers like Murali sir, Vasudevan sir, Shashidharan sir, so many of them, if they were not there, they created so much enchantment about Ayurveda. And this is why I believe Ayurveda is Guru Mukhodgirnam, Shastram Guru Mukhodgirnam. You have to learn from real masters, because this is a science that is not just objective. It has a lot of subjective spiritual elements also. So we have to learn it from people who live it, who walk the talk, and from them you can get inspired. So my real inspiration came when I started listening to the teachers, when they were able to answer a lot of my questions, and when I started getting exposed to the clinical aspects of Ayurveda. If you are not with really good clinicians, you will not get. For me, what I have understood is that Ayurveda works, although I never understood how and why it works. So I have been enchanted to see physicians giving all these complex treatments which I couldn't understand. All of those herbs, each formulation having hundreds of herbs, treatments all mixed and combined together. But at the end of the whole treatment, patients are getting up, they are feeling better, they are going. So this was a big enigma for me. We need to really explain how Ayurveda. So I understood that Ayurveda works. So this was a big transition. And then the whole question was how Ayurveda works. And that is what made me also to bring this scientific element into my inquiry. It is not enough that Ayurveda just works, and that is why it is not getting recognition today. You may be able to succeed as a practitioner, you may have your own circle of patients, but for Ayurveda to get globally recognized as a system. So this was the dilemma. Do I want to be an individually successful practitioner, or should I work for the system to get accepted? Now this is a big dilemma that we have today. I want all of you to also think about this after you finish your BMS course. If you learn a lot of tricks, you can become a practitioner. But your becoming a successful practitioner will not always translate into development of the field of Ayurveda as such. So it will be truncated, it will be a suffocated growth, where you have your patients, you have your successes, but the system is still not recognized. So I decided that I want Ayurveda now not to be disproved, but actually to be recognized, because I began to see. So after I finished my course, what did I do? Can anybody guess? I have never, everything in my life, it has been like a calling. I have never applied for a job in my life. I don't know whether I should be proud of it, or I may have lost a lot of opportunities. I never tried for government jobs. I never tried for university positions. I never tried to become a professor. Things were just happening for me. I believe that if you have a clear purpose in your life, things can happen in your life. Because I got my first assignments even before I completed my BMS course. I was involved with LSPSS. And my interest at that time was to explore. I wanted to go around and meet traditional physicians and see what they are doing. So we had a project called Padam, Program for Archiving and Documenting Ayurvedic Medicine. It was supported by a Japanese friend of mine who gave me camera, tents and a lot of materials. I don't know how we came to meet each other when I told my interest, and we met in Netherlands. He said, I would like to support you, and then I went around the whole state of Kerala meeting. So I was very lucky to meet many of the traditional Ayurveda physicians. So this is a learning that I could not have obtained through any university or any institution. I used to spend time sitting with these Vaidyas, take a camera, interview them, transcribe all the notes and understand how they are treating patients. So compared to what I learned from the college, from the books and texts and the academic curriculum, this made my understanding of Ayurveda more complete and more broad, because I began to realize how things actually work in real life, how the tradition of Ayurveda was preserved. So I met Ashtavaidyas, I met Vishavaidyas, I met Balavaidyas, I met Netra Vaidyas. Kerala had a lot of these Vaidyas at that time. Now all of them have gone. The Ashtavaidya tradition. There was also a tradition of psychiatrists. So the only tradition of psychiatry in Kerala, and I was able to actually interview that main physician. He's no more, and that was a very, very insightful interaction with him. Gave up completely new paradigms about what is mental health. And so what I've understood, these are things that students are missing in the college education. These materials and videos are still available. We should make them into educational materials and introduce them into the curriculum. Because Ayurveda was an oral tradition. A lot of things were transmitted from through word of mouth and through personal contact between the Shishya and the Guru. Which is today, by the introduction of the classroom teaching, we have completely, put Ayurvedic teaching within a framework. And so this is what I discovered at that time. But I can say that my skepticism had not completely died out. So I was having this schizophrenia. Now I had become a bit schizophrenic. On the one, I'm going to use your theme for today's discussion also, the schizophrenic Vaidya Scientist. On the one hand, trying to believe and accept Ayurveda, on the other hand, wanting to question it. And also, because now I had also developed some faith. I was not the pure skeptic that I was when I started the course, because I had begun to see things happening. When I went to Bala Vaidya in Kerala, in the central Kerala, Gangadhar and Vaidya, what I witnessed was a big news was coming in the paper. There were two children who wouldn't sweat at all. So they cannot come out into the sun. They cannot go to school. They have to be in a dark room because they will not sweat. And modern medicine has no treatment for this. So when I went to this Vaidya, I was seeing these two children running around in the sun after Ayurvedic treatment. And this had become a big news. So I thought maybe Ayurveda can do small things, but I was completely dumbfounded when I saw this traditional Vaidya has treated a condition that has become a big news in the newspapers. But why did it not gain currency? Because these Vaidyas, what they were doing were considered as miracles or one-off things, because the whole mechanism and the science behind it couldn't be explained. So this is what got me thinking that it is not enough for us to just show. These will all be considered as miracles, but not science, unless we bring the scientific aspect, and also explain how and why Ayurveda works. That is what made me a researcher. I could have developed into a practitioner, but I realized if I sit as a practitioner, I wouldn't be able to do this service to Ayurveda, to evolve and develop it into a science. So while I must have contact with clinical practice, my primary area of interest should be in. And this is where one or two, because we are running out of time, in the next 5 minutes I will conclude. To summarize, there have been some instances where I really had the chance to test Ayurveda very vigorously. And this has been life defining for me, because the outcomes of these tests, the acid tests, are what actually completely changed my outlook and gave me a clear positioning and perspective on how Ayurvedic research, should move forward. So the first lesson is, yes, we can be critical about Ayurveda. When Agnivesha, when I was struggling in my mind with all these doubts and questions, I came across a passage in the Ashtanga Hridayam. This is the last chapter of the whole Samhita, so nobody reads it usually, where Agnivesha is questioning his teacher Atreya. Agnivesha is telling, "Oh Atreya, I am not convinced by your teachings. I don't think Ayurveda works, because people who take Ayurveda are seen to be sick. People who don't take Ayurveda are getting better. People who are not taking Ayurveda are healthy, and people who are taking also." So, Pratikurvan Siddhyati, when you treat, sometimes it is getting better. Pratikurvan na Siddhyati. Sometimes when you treat, no result is there. So he was actually asking a very big statistical question. Where is the proof? How do you know? How do I know whether Ayurveda really works? So I thought, my goodness, I have somebody on my side, right from the text. So Agnivesha became my ideal. Agnivesha was the questioning, student of Ayurveda. And that Agnivesha became my ideal. I realized that questioning is not against tradition. Many of us were taught to believe that we shouldn't question our texts. And this is what I think prevents us from becoming a scientist. What I can say is, you can become a Vaidya Scientist. You can be a Vaidya, you can have belief and faith in your system, but you can also question it. This is the real character of a Vaidya Scientist. That you are accepting Ayurveda based on not blindly believing it, by questioning it. And you can get this inspiration from the text itself, from our tradition itself. That is a person I would call as a Vaidya Scientist. So I had one or two occasions where, this interaction happened. So one was in Coimbatore. When I was working there, again I was setting up a research system there, and I still remember with great gratitude and love Krishna Kumarji, who was my mentor right from the beginning. I joined the course of Ayurveda. He was, so once I still remember, when I was in my first year, I realized that Ayurveda has a lot of spirituality, and I didn't know how to reconcile science and spirituality. So I thought that if spirituality is true, then Ayurveda may be true, because it doesn't seem to be much grounded on science. It's more grounded on spirituality. So Krishna Kumarji actually had put up a poster in the college. So I was just a first year student of BMS at that time. There was a conference on synthesis of science and religion happening in Mumbai, where a lot of Nobel laureates were attending. So I got very curious. I didn't know whether, I was so curious that I thought I wanted to go. I wanted to attend this. Because I thought all the questions, answers to my questions could be found in this conference about science, religion. But I am just a first year student. Will I ever get a chance to, attend this? Maybe the seniors are there, all this. So I was going on brooding about this, and the vacation time came. I forgot to ask anybody. But when I went home, this thought was nagging me. I still wanted to attend this conference. So I decided to take a chance. I told my father, I'm going to meet Krishna Kumarji and just going to ask him, because I cannot sleep otherwise. So I went there and asked him, and I was so surprised. He said, at last, at least somebody got interested in my poster. So I'll make sure that you go and attend this conference. So this was done by the Bhakti Vedanta Institute. But of course, I met many Nobel laureates there. I was able to speak to them. So studying on a course of Ayurveda, this was the kind of exposure Krishna Kumarji was trying to give people. It was mind-boggling, that whole conference that I attended. And I had no registration. This is what he taught me also. That, go with a sense of purpose. Just go, and he just sent me a small note. It's still, just a piece of paper where he has just written, please admit him to the conference, and his signature was there. He told me, you go and meet so and so person and show this letter, they will admit you. So I was not sure, but I was excited at that age, going in a train up to Mumbai for the first time. And there was no booking. He said, I'll give you money, you find your way, you go somehow. So that was my first. I went there, I showed this letter, the organizer of the conference. That's when I realized how connected they were. I got the full kit, I got a stay, everything, and I attended that conference. So that made me realize that there is a possibility of science, spirituality, Ayurveda, science coming together on a common platform. That was really a perspective creating thing. So now let me just conclude about two anecdotes, incidents that really influenced me. One was when I was in AVP, there was this PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service of the USA. They wanted to do a story on Ayurveda and they had come to India. Somebody referred them my name. So after going to many institutions, they came to AVP and they contacted me and he said, we want to do a story on Ayurveda because US public are turning towards Ayurveda. We have to educate them. So I said, I will speak to our head and our medical director and we'll get back. So he said, no, before you talk to them, I have to say, I'm not come here for the regular interview. Don't imagine that we'll ask you some questions and that you will give answers and we publish it. We want to do a real study. We want to do a real story. So I asked, what is it? So he said, see, look, my shoulder. I was in the army. I was a journalist at that time reporting war. 25 years ago, my shoulder got damaged. Allopathic doctors say only a prosthesis is the solution, but it is attended with lot of risks. So can you fix this for me? If I get better, then I will tell America that Ayurveda is useful. Otherwise, I will tell it is not useful. Are you willing to? Now, this is why a lot of people didn't want to do it. So I thought, okay, it's a good chance to test Ayurveda. My instincts, just came up. I said, why not? Why should I? So I was worried whether Krishna Kumarji or Dr. Ravindran, who was the medical director, would agree. See, this is the thing. Krishna Kumarji had so much faith in Ayurveda that he had no problem in testing it. So he said, when I said, people, what is there? Why don't you have faith in Ayurveda? We can help that person. He had so much faith. Dr. Ravindran also said, ask him to come. So then I asked him, I was then feeling a bit worried whether, this is a challenge worth taking, because how much time I asked him he has. He said, I have about 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, you must fix my shoulder. So then I told him, don't you think it is unfair? You have been suffering from this problem for 25 years and modern medicine cannot fix it. And you are telling us that for Ayurveda, we'll give you 2 weeks. So he said, let me be fair. I am not expecting a miracle to happen in 2 weeks. But if I even see 10% improvement, I will say that Ayurveda is beneficial. So we decided to give. He had a hell of a time. We decided to give him treatments that he needed and also what he did not need, so that he gets a real taste of Ayurveda. And he tells in his video that my family does not know what it means to become a journalist. I am undergoing such awful treatments and procedures. But at the end of 12 days, for the first time in 25 years, he combed his hair. So this was not a clinical trial. This was not, because it's a real life situation. Ayurveda could give that message, could transform. So I realized every time I get a chance to test Ayurveda like this, I like to do it, even now. I feel we should take up those challenges. We shouldn't shy away. We shouldn't be. So if Ayurveda is worth it, then, it can. And then was the NIH study which you were mentioning about, which also, we never knew what was going to happen, because we were putting Ayurveda through one of the most stringent tests, scientific tests, where we introduce Ayurvedic placebos. We don't have time. I'm just concluding here because I'd like some interaction. Any other things I can clarify when we talk. For the first time, Ayurveda was tested in a way that it is practiced using a randomized control trial design with blinding and all that. And we never knew until the end of the study, what would be the outcome. It was a highly risky thing to do because Ayurveda was, you could have completely exposed its limitations. But whenever we try to do this, so that is what I feel is that if Ayurveda is truth, then it cannot be against research, it cannot be against scientific inquiry. But truth goes beyond what modern science considers as, truth, quote unquote. So if we have a passion for truth, then I think, the path will be opened before you. That is what I have learned in my life. That I don't remember having applied for any job. The circumstances have come where, I have had some opportunity to engage myself. It may not have always been financially very rewarding. There may have been better options, but it has been career-wise fulfilling and meaningful. So I think that is there in Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a living science, it's a tradition. And to engage with it, you can engage it with the, tool of truth. And the more you realize it on the platform of truth, the more, it will unravel itself to you. And the more you will find meaningful ways to engage with Ayurveda as well as apply it in society. So this is in brief, my humble story.
Thank you so much, sir. So we had shared 5 slides, and one of the slides was a day in your life. So that's the only aspect that you have not touched upon. So can you
Yeah,
just tell us
sorry,
a
because
day in your life? Yeah.
yes, I was reading actually, so I can also say that my course completely changed the way I even live my life. Because when I was, before I joined Ayurveda, I had some of the most erratic lifestyles anybody could have. Sleeping very late in the night, drinking a lot of tea, just doing what you feel like in an impulsive way. And this was one of the greatest challenges also in joining and studying the Ayurveda course, because this was a very intense Gurukula system of training. The first thing that I had to change was the way I lived my life. Waking up at a particular time, spending time for meditation, spirituality, yoga. It was not just about studying, it was about completely transforming my life. So I think that has changed the way I have looked at life also, my whole career and even today. That I realize that we have to live our life in a way that we harmonize with nature. We have to live a life in such a way that we have to awaken our inner and higher potential. It is not just about, doing your profession, doing your, work, or even your family. There is something higher. I mean, you were mentioning about work-life balance. Here, you have to do a balance between your worldly goals and your spiritual goals. That kind of a balance is what Indian tradition says we need. It's not just work. I mean, I don't want to be critical about that, but that's very, very important. Work-life balance is extremely very important. But I'm just to bring another dimension to this whole aspect. Is your goal of life, higher goals of life versus lower goals of life balance? How much time do you spend think, contemplating? How much time do you spend? So in my life, it is the mornings that I actually, spend for these higher pursuits. I don't really do so much of ritualistic prayers, or, as Ayurveda says, immediately on waking up, you have to realize that your body is an instrument. I have really tried to work on my body in the last many years, reversing some health issues also with just lifestyle, not taking medications, because the moment I do that, I realize that I cannot be preaching Ayurveda. Maybe another 10 years I should go without medications. So taking care of your own body. This is very important. I think Ayurveda Vaidyas should be not negligent about this. We have to set an example. Sarina Madhyam Khalu Dharma Sadhana. Watching how your body is, functioning the moment you wake up. Ayurveda advises this. So I try to spend a lot of time. Of course, when you're traveling, when you are in some, there may be breaks and interruptions. But on the whole, this should be part of your. And once you take care of that, once it's like a flight. Once you do all the maintenance and all that, the flight has to take off. You have to really think of your higher goals. Every day, the Ashtanga Hridaya tells us you have to think about how your life is, moving. Where are you in terms of your mundane goals and your spiritual goals? Are you progressing? Sometimes the progress happens very slowly. So this contemplation is actually very, very important. So what I am looking and trying to do is, in the Shastras, there is this Yamas. 6 yamas are there, and Ayurveda says according to the yamas you must lead your life. I try my level best to bring this work-life balance and spiritual and materialistic life balance within this framework. So we say Brahma Muhurtam. I have to confess that I am not really a Brahma Muhurta person, but I try to wake up as early as I can, because many things happen. Because I believe that we must get now I used to be deprived of sleep a lot, but you must sleep sufficient according to your physical body's requirement. Ayurveda, it is upastamba, ahara, nidra and brahmacharya. These are the upastambas, the supports. So we have to make sure that I realized ardharoga hari nidra is something which I have learned from my life, because I have been sleep deprived and I also try to compensate for it. So getting up rested, that is my concept. Not always waking in the Brahma Muhurta, but try to target it around the Brahma Muhurta period. And then, of course, we have the Lakshmi Yama. The most creative things that you want to do in your life should be done in the morning. By mid-morning, it becomes Jeshta Yama. That is when you have to do your routine activities. And then comes the Parvati Yama, when you can do relaxation and things. And then before going to sleep is the Durga Yama, where you have to do certain disciplines, looking at what has happened that day, how to self-correct, introspection. And then comes the Kali Yama, where you are supposed to sit, you must sleep. So what guides me is this Ayurvedic idea of Dinacharya, and I try as much as possible, because I believe that by following this framework, you can bring, because according to the yamas, giving time for your family, giving time for everything should be balanced. But what is most important to really balance is that you should not lose sight of your spiritual goal. This is something which people don't have at all. I mean, it's not just about, which I never had that. It was because of my introduction to Ayurveda. Eventually, over a period of time, this became very clear, that this is what eventually you have to salvage from your life, how you progress spiritually, because all your physical life, all your mundane activities is the playground for you to mature spiritually.
All right, thank you, sir. And it's a very beautiful talk actually in the evening, because it's not Kali Yama yet. What is it? To which it is
It's
Durga Yama.
Durga.
Yeah. We are opening it now for questions.